Right. So I want to talk about the big robbery that happened on the weekend in the Saudi card. Right. I'm not talking about Bivol. I'm talking about Carlos Adames. Right. The middleweight champion, WBC middleweight champion, getting robbed in his fight against hamzah Sheeraz. Right, the judges had it a draw. Well, one judge had it just about right, 118-110 to Carlos Adames. That was about right. I had it personally 10 rounds to 2 or 9 rounds to 3 for Carlos Adames. Sheeraz, he started okay. He was using a jab and a straight right hand. You know, he's got good fundamentals, good jab, good right hand, you know, good stance. But everything is just the same, you know, basic. He hasn't had any test in his career. I would compare him to AJ, actually, Anthony Joshua. You know, the fundamentals are there. The guard up, good straight jab, good straight right hand. But apart from that, you know, he's lacking in other areas. Sheeraz, he just wasn't able to do anything to get to Adames. And Adames, listen, the first 4 rounds were pretty competitive. Okay, Adames was coming forward, trying to get inside. Sheeraz was keeping the range with his jab, right hand. But again, Adames was the ring general, right? He was the guy on the front foot. He was the guy making the fight, even in those first 4 rounds. And out of those first 4 rounds, I gave Sheeraz 2 rounds. So it was 2 apiece after 4. From round 5 to 12, it was all Adames. There's no way that anybody could give Sheeraz any of those rounds. It was Adames. You know, he started to break through the range that Sheeraz was trying to keep. Okay, he started to get past the jab and land his punches, and it was complete domination from round 5 to 12. He won every single round from 5 to 12. The only rounds you could give Sheeraz was in the first 4. You know, if you didn't give him the first 4 rounds or a couple of those first 4 rounds, there's no way you could give him any rounds in the fight. You know, it was those first 4 rounds, I gave them two apiece because nobody was really landing a lot. Adames was working, but he wasn't landing a lot in those first 4. And same with Sheeraz, but Adames was on the front foot. You know, he was making the fight. So if you're going to give anyone those rounds, you would give it to Adames, the guy that's making the fight. And then round 5 to 12, it was Carlos Adames, you know, all the way. He won every one of those rounds without question. So at the absolute worst, I could see someone giving Sheeraz the first 4. But then it was Adames from there. So 8-4, right? 8 rounds to 4 in favor of Adames would be the absolute worst scorecard you could give in favor of Adames. It was, you know, for me it was 10-2. So Clearly the judges were paid, or two of the judges anyway. Like I said, one judge had it 118, 110, which is, you know, a wide score for Adamas, which, okay, so that judge probably wasn't paid off, okay, because he gave it to Adamas and he was right. And the funny thing is, after the fight, the commentators, when they heard the result, one of the commentators, I'm not sure which, I'm not sure who he is, but he started giving that judge a hard time, the one that scored it right, the one that scored it massively in favor of Adamas. He started saying that, you know, what fight was that judge watching, you know, which is unbelievable, you know. So the commentators were clearly paid as well. So yeah, I mean, the one judge had it a draw and the other judge had it 115, 114 for Sheeraz, which I don't know how you get that score. I think the only way to get that score would be to score one of the rounds a draw. If I'm not mistaken, I think one of the rounds would have had to been scored a draw, 115, 114. So one judge had it, clearly those two judges were paid off, you know, 115, 114, and then another one had it a draw, you know. There's no way in the world that fight was a draw. There's no way that Sheeraz won the fight. It's an absolute disgrace, and clearly two of those judges were paid. So, you know, people have to call this out. We have to call this out as fans when there's these robberies, right? Up until now, a lot of people have been saying these Saudi cars have been fair, and that Turkey, you know, Turkey's getting a lot of praise. They're saying the judges are calling it fair, but clearly the favoured fighter, you know, got a massive let off here. Hamzah Sheeraz being ambassador for Saudi boxing, a Muslim, right, which is why he's an ambassador for Saudi. You know, he's one of the fighters of Turkey. So clearly Turkey has paid off two of these judges. I mean, it's clear as day. There's no way that these judges are that bad that they scored it a draw. One scored it a draw and one scored it for Sheeraz. That's, you know, it's impossible that that happens, unless you're paid off, unless you have an incentive not to let Sheeraz lose the fight, which that is clearly what happened. So Turkey, you know, we see you've paid off the judges, you know, you're not different. You're not different to Al Heyman and BBC, or Bob Arum with Top Rank, or Matchroom, or anyone else that rigs fights. Clearly you've rigged this fight, and yeah, it is what it is, but we've got to call it out, because if we don't call it out, then these promoters, they just keep getting away with this, you know. They rob a fighter, they pay off judges, and then they act like, oh well, the judges saw it how they saw it. It was a close fight. But we know it wasn't a close fight. It wasn't even a little bit close. Adamas clearly won. Sheeraz, he's got a loss on his record as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, that's the way I see it. We need to call out these robberies, and that's it really. Let me know what you thought.